anybody hear me? Test.
Yeah, we hear you.
Oh, thank you, Chief.
Hey, can I get everybody to mute their lines?
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
We were getting some feedback. Can we just mute your lines until we get started? There was a line that was unmuted. Hey, we will get started. We're waiting on Vice Mayor Brown. As soon as she comes on, we're going to go ahead and get started. So let's give it another couple minutes.
It's been up for 45 minutes. I logged on a little early, and I'm kind of glad I did.
Good evening. We'd like to welcome everybody to the City of Palatka's April 13th special call meeting. Palatka City Commission called for special meeting. The undersigned mayor of the city of Palatka, Florida, hereby this 13th day of April 2020, pursuant to section 2-72 of the Code of Ordinance of the city of Palatka, Florida, calls for a special meeting of the Palatka City Commission to be held at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, April 15th, 2020, originating from the Palatka City Hall located at 201 North 2nd Street, Palatka, Florida, but with participation and attendance also permitted via communications, media technologies such as telephonic and video conferencing, as specifically authorized by Executive Order number 20-69, issued by Governor Ron DeSantis. The purpose of the meeting will be to discuss contract, employment, reemployment of William P. Shanahan as city manager of the city of Palatka, Florida, and to take any actions concerning the same which the commission deems appropriate. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Signed by me, Terrell Hill. We hereby acknowledge receipt by all the commissioners who were served with the receipt of this notice. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. We're going to ask that Commissioner McCaskill lead us in the invocation, and Commissioner Borum, would you lead us in the pledge? And I hope you guys can see the flag behind me at this time. So if everyone will please stand in their respective places for the pledge and the invocation.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, our strength and our Redeemer. Father, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Father, we ask you for your blessings over this agenda and for us to keep in mind, Father, that not only are we leaders, but we are also servants. And that it is our responsibility to serve the common good for all. Father, help us to act with character and wisdom. Help us to listen with understanding and respect for each other. And help us to speak with clarity. Father, we ask that you guide our hearts and minds tonight to speak out and listen patiently and respectfully as we go through this meeting. We ask you to renew our strength of your presence and the joy of helping us to build a community that reflects wisdom and love. This we pray in your son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Follow me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both, commissioners. At this time, we'll go ahead and have the roll call. Commissioner Board,
Present.
Commissioner Brown, Vice Mayor Brown,
My speaker not working.
your speaker's on. Yeah, we hear you.
You hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Good.
I don't see my picture up there. So I don't know if y'all.
You have to mash the button that has a video camera at the top of the screen. Commissioner Campbell,
Present.
Commissioner McCaskill,
Here.
Carol Hill's here as well. All members are present and we have a quorum. Moving on to public comments. Public comments will be limited to based on the messages that are coming in. Our public comments today are taken via our YouTube live page. For future meetings, we're trying to have an actual dial-in number for individuals who want to dial in and have comments as well. We hope to have that, within the time for the next meeting. But for today's meeting, anyone who wishing to have a public comment, we will take some moments at this time for public comments. Please go on your YouTube page. There is a comment section. You can actually type your comment in and we will read your comment. So as you type your comment, also place your name there so that we will have it for the record. So if there's anyone who has a comment or a question that they would like to have read at this time, we're going to take a brief pause as comments come in from the chat feature. We can see those features and all you have to do is type in your comment and we will read it aloud. So be mindful of the comments that are made, but also if you have questions or comment at this time, just type your name in your comment and we can read those comments. So again, are there any questions or comments from the viewers at this time? Any questions or comments that are coming from viewers at this time? Do we see any comments?
I don't see any.
Seeing no comments at this time, we're going to go ahead and close public comment. Public comment is hereby closed as it relates to this matter. Again, are there any questions, comments from the viewers at this time? Any questions or comments that are coming from viewers at this time? Do we see any comments?
I don't see any.
Seeing no comments at this time, we're going to go ahead and close public comment.
Mayor,
Public
there are
comment
questions
hereby
that
closed
have
as it
become,
relates to this matter. Again, are
there
there
are
any
questions that
questions, comments from the viewers at this time? Any questions or comments that are coming from the viewers at this time? I'm getting feedback for some reason. Looks like there's a delay in what I'm getting. Do you see any comments?
I don't see any.
there
Seeing no
are,
comments at this time, we're going to go ahead and close public comment.
Mayor, there are
Hereby
questions that
closed as
have
it
become,
relates to this. I can hear any questions, comments from the viewers at this time. I'm getting all the questions or comments that are coming from the viewers at this time. I'm getting feedback for some reason. Looks like there's a delay in what I'm getting. You see any comments?
I don't see any.
there are,
Seeing no comments at this time, we're going to go ahead and close public comment.
Mayor,
Public
there
comment
are
hereby
questions that
closed
have
as it
become,
relates to this. I can hear any questions, comments from the viewers at this time. I'm getting all
I'm not sure if there's something going on. This is Commissioner McCaskill, but I think I've lost communication or something.
Can you hear me now?
Much better. Yes.
I came back off, I was getting some feedback and everything. All the audio was coming back to me about 30 seconds late, so I logged off and logged back on.
Ms. Robinson has some comments.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes, Mayor, there are a few comments.
I can't hear you. Can you speak up just a little bit? And can you read them off?
Can you hear me?
I can't hear her.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me, Mayor?
We can't hear you now. We cannot hear
Okay.
you.
We ready, Mayor?
I am.
Okay. We have a question from Jonelle Williams. The question reads, is it or was it possible have conducted an evaluation of Mr. Shanahan's allegedly mishandling after this pandemic is over?
We can't hear. Let's do this. Hold those comments, Ms. Robinson. What I'll do is I'll move public comment down to the end after item 1 so that you can work out whatever technical difficulties you're having right now. And we'll just move into we'll move into question 1 on the agenda and we'll go from there. We'll move to item 1 on the agenda. We'll come back to public comment so that we can make sure that everyone
Okay.
has an opportunity to get their stuff in. Can everyone hear me at this time?
Yes, sir.
So the purpose of this meeting, I call this meeting, and I call this meeting really for one specific purpose. I've had an opportunity since we were here on Thursday to really go back and review the events that took place over the course of Thursday's meeting and really reflect on what happened. And in the process of doing that, it really caused me to internalize. And one of the things that I think is important, it was interesting, there was a Facebook post which talked about, which had a kind of a poll as to quarterbacks in the history of Palatka High School and who were the greatest quarterbacks that ever come through Palatka High School. But what that caused me to do, along with just praying and worrying about the direction that the city of Palatka was going in overall, I began to realize that over the course of the last few years, this commission has had an opportunity to accomplish a lot of things as it relates to infrastructure improvements within the community, resurrecting recreation, being able to reorganize to get us off of the brink of bankruptcy, getting us out of financial ruins, and really starting increasing the minimum wage for employees, doing all these great things. And those things were accomplished as a team. And one of the things that happens with teams is teams have natural people who are leaders. The commission in its own right, we're all captains of various segments of this community and within our districts, within the community as a whole. And with every team, there's always a quarterback. And one of the things that I'm charged with kind of as the quarterback for the city of Palatka is I'm charged with keeping this entire team together, with being able to read sometimes your thoughts before you ever say anything, be able to see your frustrations, to do all these different things. And really to be able, in many ways, as the person who chairs the meetings, to be able to help keep dialogue open. And as I look at what happened over the last week or so, and it obviously was something that was more than just a week, I think I failed to really and truly understand what was going on, to see the frustrations in commissioners' eyes or in their mindset. I misdiagnosed that there was turmoil inside of the city, that there was thought processes that made us believe that we needed to do something different. And even in the course of that meeting, I think there were greater opportunities for us to increase dialogue and for us to work collectively, because at the end of the day, the one thing that happens with us is this: we all love Palatka. We wouldn't serve in the positions that we're here. In Commissioner McCaskill's prayer, she talked about having unity and being able to do things collectively. And the thing that I understand more than anything is that we have an obligation to come together, and we've been successful in doing so. And I believe that my biggest failure was that I was unable to help resolve conflict. One of the 5 greatest responsibilities that leaders have is being able to resolve conflict among those who serve with them. And I think that we were at a point where we had conflict and we didn't find ourselves, I didn't find myself in a position where I was able to truly resolve that conflict so that we could see an opportunity to come together and have greater dialogue or even deal with our discourse. In no way do I want to say that anybody else did anything wrong, because I think it starts at the head. And I think the biggest thing that we have to understand is this: my job is to make sure that the team called Palatka plays the same way. We found ourselves in a situation where we were playing like we were ahead and we weren't. We lost. We lost because people walked out of a meeting frustrated, unable to communicate with one another with questions. But we lost because the team that's always been unified, and although we've always had opportunities where we've disagreed or we voted differently, it was all in the love of Palatka. And in the middle of a pandemic, we found ourselves asking questions about things that were different than what our true focus should be right now. And our true focus should be on the health, safety, and welfare of this community. But there was a frustration that was involved that I missed. And I think, and I don't make excuses for it, but what I wanted to have was an opportunity for us all to have some dialogue about how we move this community forward. Because Palatka is what we all love. Palatka is the community that we all care for, and we serve not for any riches or anything of that nature. We make sacrifices in serving this community. And while we make those sacrifices, we also have a commitment to the people. And if the people see us divided, there's no way we can ask the people to ever remain unified, because it starts at the head. And I really wanted to have an opportunity for this commission to be able to have dialogue about our thought processes, about how we move Palatka forward, because it would be remiss of me if I don't sit here and say, as the mayor of this city, that we're hurting. People were hurting and upset in that meeting. People were angry. People were confused. I watched the faces of our department heads and even our commissioners as we went through that meeting. And it was far different than anything that I've ever experienced in the 5 years that we've been here together. And it's not an example of who Palatka is. This commission has done wonderful things together. We constantly say we're better together because we are. And I don't want this to ever be a divisive factor in how we move this community forward. You know, and I think the biggest part of it is we have to talk. We have to talk, and I think we have to be representatives of how we want this community to move forward. Because at the end of the day, we all wear the same uniform. We're all Palatka. And while our thought processes may be different, while our impacts may be different, we've got to make sure that we all stand strong together. And also when you look at it, Bill Shanahan has been the newest member to the Palatka team. Bill Shanahan comes into Palatka, he's been here for 5 months. And in a 5-month period, he's had to deal with an employee decision as it relates to a long-term employee and how he would handle that as a manager. Under the charter, that's his responsibility. But he also had to deal with the pandemic. We're in a place where none of us ever thought we would ever be. We're dealing with COVID-19, and it's something that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime, but it's a reality of what we're all dealing with. I was watching a Florida League of Cities video the other day, and it was an online call, and it was from FLC University. And the second half of the call talked about the psychological effects of dealing with pandemics and how it may affect us all in what goes on. And it's a period of frustration for the community, for the commission, for management, for staff, for all of us, because it takes us out of our normal routines. And while we're dealing with those things, we have to make sure that we remember what the ultimate goal is. And the ultimate goal is to take a community that's been here since 1853, a community that was considered to be once a dying city based upon the logic of other people that was out there, and continually move forward. We set forth our priorities. We set forth what we need to do collectively. We have a playbook that's been orchestrated by this commission. And our job is to hand that playbook off to the city manager and give him an opportunity to do it. Within that 5-month period, there was a month of employment issues he dealt with, and there was a month of pandemic, a month plus of dealing with the pandemic. And we find ourselves today saying that over the course of that time, after taking 100 days, meeting with people from every corner of the community, that we're in frustration. And so for me today, my biggest thing is I want to ask the commission, what's your thought processes on how we move forward and how we move forward as a team and dealing with what's going on? You know, Commissioner McCaskill, do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand exactly what you're saying, Mayor.
Right. Commissioner Borum, do you understand what I'm saying?
I very well understand what you're saying, and if you're talking about a team player, I'm your guy. I am the guy, and no doubt about it. Nothing changes about me from since I was a young child to now, and I've treated everybody the same. I've always been forthright. I operate with the highest degree of integrity, respect, and humility for people. That's just me. Maybe people seen things. I was a little upset last time. Yes, I was full because there were some things that happened that and I apologize to them for that, but I don't apologize for what I said. I mean, in terms of my vote.
Okay. And you've always been a team player. You may be a little bit of a ball hog in basketball, but you've always been a team player. And so definitely we appreciate that. Commissioner Campbell, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you, and I'm in agreement with everything that you stated.
Vice Mayor Brown, can you hear me?
Was the kind of referee for us. For one reason, I've been around for a while. And second reason, I try to sit and listen to what you all do and what you all say, because each generation is a little different. My complaints with the city manager started well before the pandemic, and it just happened that I found out how other people felt during this time. I understand, and I've encouraged us to be better together, and you know that. I will never do anything that I know consciously to hurt the city. I put people first. My saying is, if I take care of people, God will take care of me. And that's what I've tried to do during the years I've been here. I was displeased with some of the stuff that went on, and it just came to a head. And I think that we need a better way of communicating with each other. We can't talk to each other when stuff comes up. I had gone to the city manager with the things that I thought needed to be done and asked him to talk to the rest of the commission. I don't know if he did that with you all or not, but the things that I have that upset me about him was not a surprise, should not have been a surprise to him, because I talked to him, sat and talked to him about it one-on-one.
But I guess my question is, how would the rest of us know if we can't talk to each other, what the concerns are? And I guess that's one of my questions. And I guess I'll start there.
I can, I'll chime in on that. I mean, just like we do everything else, we workshop everything. I mean, anytime we need to do anything as it relates to city business or whatever it may be, we workshop things. And we needed to make sure that we had a vision in place. And I've sent that to every city manager that we've had, but we got to workshop this thing. We need to have a vision, a mission statement. We have goals that we're going to try and complete. A lot of times the way the operations run is just haphazard. We're all over the place, and we're not doing things collectively, and people have to respect everybody's opinion. It needs to be a formulated recipe so that everybody have a voice and be able to help move the city forward with all of the priorities, because each and every commissioner and the mayor, we have our own visions, but we have to collectively put those on the table and give the direction to the city managers so that they can carry out the needs of the city. So, I mean, that's where a lot of the confusion been coming in. Collectively, everybody have not really gotten together and worked together as a team to move the city forward. And it's just been, and you know, I mean, that's just the way it's been. So, and that's what creates a lot of frustration.
So can I ask you a question, Commissioner? So you mentioned workshop. Commissioner Board, you mentioned workshop. In the process, in dealing with this situation, do you believe that the concept of workshop would be beneficial for us all to understand what the shortcomings or frustrations or even the issues were as it pertained to Mr. Shanahan? And if that's a belief, then you're familiar with corrective actions and things of that nature. Do you think there should be a period where you create some method of correcting whatever the actions are that you feel like there are deficits in?
If you're talking about the action that I took against.
No, not for you. What I'm asking is, you said that workshop is a way that we move forward when we're dealing with certain things. So as we're talking about the issues with the city manager, do you believe that, you know, having a workshop where you sit down and talk about what you believe the shortcomings were would be beneficial in a situation like this?
No, my opinion, I think we need to set an overall vision, mission, and strategy for our city, because a lot of times, you know, what our priorities are is the infrastructure, our water lines. I mean, we got 150-year-old water lines in the ground, and we've only, you know, we that's our biggest issue. We got wastewater treatment plant. That's another big issue. We have other things that we also need to put into play, like economic development and making sure that we can get the people here, you know, help people, invite people to our community. So we just need to sit down and talk about what we need to do. And before we get any city manager to move forward with anything, is that we all sit down with each city manager as it's written in the contract to make sure that there's no discrepancies. And that's where I think things went wrong. But we have not sat down with any city manager since we've been there, and I don't know if it's ever been done. But I know I pushed a lot of times to say, let's all make sure that we sit, and I mentioned that the last time we inquired. I say, let's not move so fast until we get together what we're gonna push forward with, the priorities and everything, so the city manager know when they get here, they have the marching orders and we can properly do things right. But when we don't sit down and execute that, you know, this is what we end up with, because he's trying to, or whoever it may be, is getting direction from everybody instead of collectively. So I think going forward, anything we do, please I think that's been our major milestone, because there's not a city manager that we've had thus far that had a review. And we have departments that don't have reviews, but we got to have some form of process, some form of just the way we operate. I operate by processes. I mean, I operate from a construct. I have my vision that tells me what I'm going to do. I operate with the virtue and talents. You might want to make sure that you put the right people in the right roles. And then we got to make sure that people have the right knowledge processes, that they know how to do their job. And if they don't, then they are properly trained. Then we get decision rights. And just because a lot of time people have the ultimate decision right, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have the final decision, because you want to get other people involved. That's called stakeholders. We need to have stakeholders involved. It's just not just because a person have the ultimate authority, that's the last ruling. So we got to include our stakeholders, and that sometimes it could be a multitude of people. We got to make sure that happens. And then the outcome is the incentives. That's the way I process everything. I operate from a construct.
And so you believe that the evaluation would be beneficial, because what I'm hearing is we find ourselves with a manager who now is, as opposed to moving forward based on priorities, he's trying to appease multiple personalities. That what you're saying?
I don't know how many he was appeasing, but he wasn't helping me with things that I was bringing to the table. And he wasn't responding to the department heads. He wasn't responding to the employees. We have some major issues that we can't turn our head on. We have to deal with those things internally. We have to see things the way they are and correct them. If we look in the mirror, and we say we're doing the right thing. I don't know how sometimes people can look in the mirror and say, well, I feel good about what I've done today, the decision that I've made today. I search my soul. I have a constant thing that monitors me all the time. Now, yes, I was upset the last time. Yes, I was, but I'm going to explain a little bit of that, why I was upset. I'm going to give people a little snippet today, because I just don't operate like I'm upset. I'm calm 98% of the time. So that's just me.
97.
That's my input.
97.
A second.
95.
If I
Go
may-
ahead.
1 minute.
Go ahead. You said you want to give a snippet?
I want, if I may say something.
Just hold on a second, Commissioner Campbell. I know Commissioner Borum said he wanted to give a snippet of what his thought process was. Do you want to go ahead and do that now? I can't hear you. Your video's up, your mic's off. Can you unmute, Commissioner Borum?
Yeah, hold on. Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
Well, I mean, a number of things that helped got me to the point that where I made my decision. And some of the things that helped got me to where I'm at and saying that I meant to say Shanahan was not a good fit. So but anyway, in learning a lot of the other information that I was learned sometime late in the game was that first, I think when we started the process, we vetted it through contracting out the services for city manager search. In that, we use our HR and we also use the Mercer Group. The candidates that we got back, we felt that they were vetted, and I thought from my mindset, wow, this guy a top pick for us. He was 1-2 with the other candidate, the second candidate. But as time went along, my own personal experiences, in addition to what I learned from staff, department heads, and my additional research from some of the things that came out of St. Mary's, there, some actions in St. Mary's, that's what helped me formulate my decision. And I could not allow for Mr. Shanahan contract to go no further. We were paying him $120,000. I think that's the highest we've ever paid any city manager, to my knowledge. That being said, the date was coming up. I felt that I needed to move quickly, and I was upset based on some of the things that he did. And I'm gonna give you a couple other things. I had worked with him on a number of different things. I got emails. We got emails from people who had major issues in departments. He failed to respond to a lot of stuff. He's been given direction in the same thing from St. Mary's. Once he get things in his head, he's gonna move forward with that. That's what he does. And that's what I seen. So there was 2 lawsuits. I don't want to smear too much, but there was 2 lawsuits that's coming out of St. Mary's, I learned. And I don't understand how our HR and our Mercer Group missed that information. I can't understand it.
What years was this?
I understand they came up on other searches, but how did they miss that St. Mary's, where there was 2 lawsuits out of St. Mary's for the same things, some of the same things that he was doing here?
When was this? When did these things occur?
I got it down, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And then not only that, but here's what I got. I mean, I just want to kind of share this with you because it's some major frustrations in our city. We got people who barely make $22,000 a year. We just increase wages to try to help improve the quality of life for our people. We just did that. But there's other things that we need more than giving somebody the highest increase ever, $18,000 increase, and he moved forward. I asked him, please do not do this right now because we are coming up to budget. Let's get through the budget process. He failed because it was just a consolation meeting because my understanding after I learned it, he had already made that move, paid this person, whoever it was, the $18,000 raise, retroed it back, to my understanding. And then I guess, supposed to give another incentive. And I couldn't understand that because we have people who are working the front lines. We got people who work in the front line, our sanitation workers, our fire department, our police department, our guys who are out there hitting water lines, all of this. And we talking 18, I could have took that $18,000 and divided that and could have took care of a couple of departments with just that money. We're a poor county. That's what we always, that's how we get so many grants. We get a lot of grants because we don't produce a lot of revenue. Our tax base is poor. We probably produce around $3 million on our base revenue. And that won't take care of police department, which is around near 4 million. And we got our fire department at 2-point-something million. So our general fund budget is very low. And these are the kind of things that frustrates me. And that's why it was more things than that. But we got people who can't retire because their information have not been input in 3 years or 4 years. We have people who don't have the proper insurance. We got people who can't come on board for just a lot of different things. And we go and we don't properly vet things, and we don't have any, what is the rationale or the reason behind giving somebody that kind of raise without some form of justification?
Were there any increases in duties or anything that went along with that?
Sir, we got some big problems out there. We got people who can't retire. We got people who can't get their IRS taxes. They can't. They submit it, but they can't get them until other things are done. We got people hurting. We got some people are hurting, and we got people who are afraid that if they say anything, that they're going to be retaliated against. People are hurting in the city. We need help. And they talk to Shanahan. People are talking to Shanahan about that. These are the kind of things that frustrate me. I'm fighting for the people. I don't know what everybody else is going to do, but I fight for the people. And when I learn about stuff like that, that's what I do. I have to try to make sure that we take care of the people who take care of the city. I think he's once he gets things in his head, he just moved forward with it. He did the same thing. He did not follow legal advice. In fact, he didn't even in the process of, I'm just going to give you an example. The Betsy situation. He didn't follow guidance. He didn't follow guidance. He on his own, like he did. Just look at his I can give 2 HTTPS links, web links, and these are the same thing that follow him here. And that's my comments, and that's why I made the decision I made. But I have more stuff, but I'm just saying that's the way. That'll frustrate anybody, because we got people who work in departments, and they came up to me, and I'm like, young man, you can't. Well, it's not proper for you to approach me with that, but I thank you. But I gave him direction to how he should file for his grievance or whatever, as it relates to pay, whatever it may be. Well, we got people who've been working for 3-4 years, but we just gave we gave a cost of living, not a cost of living, but we just bumped everybody up to a livable wage. And that was applaudable. But some of those people who were in that gap, that time frame, well, some of them was there for about 3 to 5 years. And you got somebody else who comes in, new off the street, they get the same wage as somebody who's training them. And, those are the kind of things that frustrate me. So I told him what the proper steps to take or do in order to kind of help resolve some of those frustrations. But I don't want to veer off the subject. I like to stay to the meat. but that's the reason why I made my decision along with another, and I'll give you another. Well, that's okay. I think
No, go ahead.
I
Go
got a
ahead.
lot. I have a lot of stuff, and I don't just make irrational decisions. I don't. I really think everything through. So I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.
So I guess I have a question. So are any of those things that you spoke of, things that existed prior to 5 months ago?
Yes.
So
Did
if
you hear?
it exists before he came along, I'm sorry, Mayor, if I may, this is Commissioner McCaskill.
Yes, go ahead.
If these things did exist 5 months before he came in, would we expect a change with him coming in and being a new city manager? Would we expect the same thing to keep happening if we weren't satisfied with this and informed of it? Wouldn't that be something if it was brought to his attention that we would expect to see a change?
But I think to kind of answer that from my perspective, I think the things that Commissioner Bourne, while I agree with some of the things, he stated that we are a workshopping commission, where we were a workshopping commission where we brought things to the table. And a lot of the things that he pointed out, it really points the finger back to us as a commission, to where we need to evaluate ourselves. At the end of every commission meeting, we have the option to give commissioner comments. Not once did I hear any of these concerns come up during those times. Then all of a sudden, boom, everything just hits the fan. As a result, we know pressure oftentimes busts pipes. But again, I think we did not do the due diligence of giving him the evaluation or giving him the opportunity to explain himself on a platform where we all would be getting the same information at the same time. As, of course, we have the sunshine law. So I don't know of meetings that he had with Commissioner Bourne. I don't know of meetings that he had with Commissioner Vice Mayor Brown. I don't know of any other meetings except the meetings that I've had for him and with him myself. But again, with the strategic plan, we knew that we needed to have a meeting with regards to the strategic plan and the 5-year plan. Did we as a commission make that happen? No. So there are things that we as commissioners, we have a duty, we have a call to do, or we can make these calls to make meetings. I believe if the mayor calls, we can do it, or if there are 2 or more commissioners that would like to meet on a certain thing, that we have the ability to have these type meetings. So again, these are things that we had prior to, and I often say within our meetings, we talk about things when they're hot. When they're not, we don't talk about them until it becomes a problem again. So again, in this whole situation, I think we need to truly evaluate ourselves. Yeah, we're all fighting for the people. We're all wanting the best for this community, as we all are a part of this community. But again, we have to we have a due diligence that we have to give, and we did not give that to Mr. Shanahan. I don't.
I would like to say,
Hold on,
I'd
hold
like
on.
to say
Hold on,
something.
let me recognize you before you
We
get
did
into it.
not give him the opportunity by providing him evaluation, as it is stated in the contract. It stated that the evaluation was to come on or before April the 4th, if I'm correct, and it came after that, and we still did not give him the opportunity to rectify some of the situations in an open platform, so that we all would be able to know what some of the concerns of the other commissioners are.
Vice Mayor?
I hear you say, we did complain about some of the stuff he did, about how he went about the Tillman house, for one thing, and how he went about wanting to get rid of properties. We discussed that in meeting and let him know that we had looked at that before and he needed more information before he moved forward with it. I was trying to be diplomatic with him, because in my other line of work, I have folks working for me, and in the years I came up, being a woman, having men work for you was a tedious thing. With me, it has not been, because we do work out of love. I went to him privately and talked to him about each one of the things I did not like, and I asked him to talk one-on-one to each one of you all, so that you could give your opinion on what needed to be done. It's not like he didn't know what we were talking about, or the route he was going was not the one that we felt was best. Seeing that we couldn't talk to each other, approaching him, I've already told Don Holmes some of the things. I mean, he called and asked for information. I thought it should be done first one-on-one. And I wanted to see how the rest of you all felt. I didn't want to feel like it was something that I had come up with and nobody else saw it. But I didn't get that response back from him. I think that he came from another state. I was concerned with all the ethics laws we have, with all the changes from state to state. And I know how many changes there are because I sit on the board for Florida League of Cities and the executive board. They send us on trips to meet with we meet with at least 8 other states, and they come up and they tell us how they function. I was concerned that he would not be able to function because he did not have, or he did not approach how some things needed to be done. I brought him a lot of information. You all know I dump information when I gather it to you all and to him on
To
how
us.
to work. All right, thank you. How the process worked in the state of Florida, because I was concerned that it would lead us into a not a good spot. I've been sitting here, I've heard each one of you. I think that he had an idea of how we felt. I just think that his mindset was, he was hired, he was a city manager, and whatever he wanted to do, it was okay. I was concerned when he treated the situation with Betsy. That's what really got to me this last time. They put a gag order on her where she couldn't talk about what happened to defend herself. But then they had the public law.
Who is they?
The city. It came out the city manager. If you come for public record, from what they tell me, that there were certain things that they told her she could not do. The doctor sent her home for 9 days because of the stress that she went through. And they told me she didn't answer all the questions right, or she lied about something. When folks in stress, strange things happen. The other thing is, I found out that he was moving upstairs. I told him that I felt that that was not a good thing for him to do, because we had people who were not able to climb the stairs, and he needed to be available to anybody who would come and want to talk to him. He paid no attention to it. The next day he had moved upstairs. I talked to him about the morale of what was happening when you get rid of people like he did. How do you think these people who work for us, most of them, almost all of them, go beyond the call of duty for what they do for the city? Some of them, we couldn't pay them for the extra hours, and especially our commission. People don't realize, put in so much extra time and heart just because we love the city. And when you feel like somebody has not had a fair shake, or it could happen to you, how they would feel. I got several calls from some people who said they had talked to him and he did not respond. I talked to him myself. I have a pet peeve, and it's personal, but I guess I should have come to you and said, commissioners, they put a piece of thing on my property to take care of the lights here on the corner of 9th and St. John's. And nobody even had the courtesy to say something to me about it. I went to him and told him what had happened, and I asked him, would he look into it? He never had time to do it. It shouldn't have taken him that long in a phone call. I'm not unreasonable, but there are little things that happen. One, somebody told me they'd never met him before, but his greeting to them was not as cordial as it should be. There were things going on that we see and we hear about. Sometimes we don't come out and say it out loud in front of everybody because we feel like it could be resolved without having a whole lot of press, because the press writes it up like they want to write it up. And all the time, they don't have the full story. And so if I have a complaint, I went to him and I talked to him, and he did not, the things I brought up, and I think it was something else, it'll come to me because I had them senior moments. But I think that he did not respond like I would have liked to have him done. I think that he should have asked and talked to more people and asked more questions about how this town operates and how we live. We're kind of funny town. If you come from somewhere else, it takes a little while for us to get used to you and the way you work.
And that's the point. That's the point, that it takes a little while. It takes a little while. And I've been back 20 years and I'm still getting used to some stuff. The question is 5 months enough to get used to him, or 5 months enough for us to get used to him?
It's long enough for you to do a start. If you had started to do some of the things, then it might make a difference. That's why I went to him one-on-one, to give him the opportunity to understand that he needed to make some changes on how he made directions or how he approached people and some of the problems that we had. And I think there probably is stuff happening that you did not know about, because all of us got constituency that talk to us and they feel comfortable talking to you, they talk to you. Some feel comfortable talking to me. I'm sure a bunch of senior citizens would rather talk to me sometime than talk to you, but that's the way it operates. And I went to him on that personal level to see if I could help him get through some of the ways and some of the changes. Now, maybe that's an old-fashioned way to do it for you all, but it's worked in the past. And I sat quietly and listened to you all in meeting to try to understand the proper way of doing it. Sometimes I've changed my minds about things because it was more rational how you all brought it about. And some things were really terrific. I was so happy that you all came up with a way for us to do more water and sewer lines and all these other things, that a way to balance the budget, that me sitting there all this time. I have expertise in some things, but you all, each one of you all have a certain expertise that you bring to the table. And when we sit and work together, I think when we get another city manager, we need to sit down in a meeting and tell him exactly what each one of us is looking for, and have the rest of the commission agree to certain guidelines, instead of sometimes I tell you, when I first got on this commission, I felt like things came up. Luckily, 2 people voted one way and 2 voted the other, and I was deciding vote. And both of them thought they could pat me on the head and not do what they said. Well, sometimes I feel like some things are done and people take for granted it's all right to do it, when they should consider it should be brought to the rest of us to look at. And it's probably no problem with doing it. It's just that when people meet me on the street and ask me about something and I can't give them an answer, it really makes me feel bad and stupid. And we need to be where if stuff comes up, I can answer it or tell them I'll get them an answer and get back to them.
Aren't there some things that the city manager has authority to do that he doesn't need to come to the commission for?
I know, I understand that. I understand that, but giving terrific raises when we want to make sure before we've checked out the budget for the next year to see if stuff is being done. Usually I know he's in charge of hiring his staff and stuff, which I don't care about. He gets big bucks. I don't want to make all those decisions. I want to make sure the bills are paid and And if he needs some guidance or some information, not even guidance, if he needs some information, he should feel free to come and talk to us. And maybe not only talk to one of us, but more than one of us.
All right, I'll come back to, I got a couple follow-up questions. I'll come back to you in a second. Commissioner McCaskill, you got anything else you want to add?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Commissioner Campbell?
There's a lot to be said, but I'm trying to see and gauge where this conversation is going. Again, I've stated in that time we've made some hasty decisions. And again, it's time for us to truly self-reflect individually and collectively as to how we are going to move forward. Because bringing another person into what we are, and as of now, they're basically coming to the same situation that Mr. Shanahan came into. So what are we truly trying to do? What is it that we want to see? Are we looking to bring Mr. Shanahan back? I just need more clarification as to that conversation of what this meeting is truly trying to accomplish.
Okay, I'll get to it.
I got a
That's fine.
question.
Go ahead.
What is special about this meeting that we are even thinking about bringing Mr. Shanahan back when we ruled, the commission ruled, and everybody had their individual votes, and the vote passed? So how, Don, is this a legal meeting to be even discussing bringing Mr. Shanahan back right now? I mean, does that violate anything, or?
Not a thing.
Well, question is does the motion have to come from the prevailing side in order to be able to even consider it? That's my
Is
question.
that a question to me?
Yes, sir. Is this a valid meeting to be even thinking about considering bringing Mr. Shanahan back? And in this meeting that we're having today, is it something that, doesn't it have to be something that the prevailing side have to come in and say, I make a motion to reconsider the former city manager? Is that that's my question.
Okay, I'll try to take, I think there's two separate questions. First of all, I do believe it's a legal meeting. As you or someone referenced earlier, our ordinances allow either the mayor or two commissioners to call a special meeting. And the ordinance doesn't specify or limit the subject matter of the meeting that the mayor or the two commissioners can call. So in my opinion, it was called properly in accord with our ordinances. Notice went out. I believe the meeting is legal. With regard to the subject matter, and I've been asked this a couple of times and I've given the same answer. Our ordinance does not allow for a motion to reconsider, in my opinion, unless the motion is made by one of the members of the commission who were on the prevailing side when the original motion was made. And also, in my opinion, I don't think a motion to reconsider can be made unless it's at a regular meeting instead of a special call meeting. As I said, I've noted that before. Section 276 of our code, and I didn't write these. All I can do is read them and interpret them. But section 276 of our code indicates that a motion to reconsider any vote or decision of the commission shall not be entertained unless made by a member who previously voted with the majority, and such motion shall be made at the same meeting or at the next regular meeting of the commission, in which latter event previous written notice of the motion to reconsider shall be given by the member, etc. So in my opinion, from a strict perspective, a strict interpretation, if you ask me, could a motion to reconsider be made at this meeting? In my opinion, it can't be. It could be made on the meeting on the 23rd by any one of the three who voted in favor of the original motion. Now, does that mean that the topic of Mr. Shanahan can't be discussed at this meeting? No, it doesn't. In my opinion, it doesn't mean that. I believe that the topic of Mr. Shanahan can be discussed. Technically, I know that to some extent, the distinction is narrow, but someone could move to hire him. I mean, rehire him, hire him, change his contract or offer a different contract. That wouldn't technically be a motion to reconsider the vote to terminate him. You know, technically a motion to reconsider that vote would be, let's back up and vote again. And if the vote is different this time, he's not terminated. That can't happen at today's meeting. It could on the 23rd if made by one of the members who voted with the majority. But I can't tell you that in my opinion that anyone is prohibited from right now making a motion to re-engage in new discussions or negotiations with Mr. Shanahan. And I'm not trying to suggest a motion at all. I am not weighing in on the question of whether you should or you shouldn't bring him back or in some fashion re-employ him. That's not my role. You asked the question, is this a legal meeting? It is. Can this subject matter be discussed? I believe it can be. Is it possible that someone could formulate a motion that deals with Mr. Shanahan that would still be lawful? I think they could. So I would just have to hear, and that's the same answer I have given when asked a couple, 3 times already this week or between Monday and now. I couldn't offer an opinion about the motion until I hear it. As to whether I think it violates the ordinance that we have. Does that answer your question, sir?
Right, but the follow-up question would be, would the motion to be made, would it have to be from the prevailing side or anybody could do it?
If it's not a motion to reconsider, then I don't know why it couldn't be made by anybody on the commission if it's not a motion to reconsider. Okay. So again, I just have to hear the motion. If it's a motion to reconsider but it's stated differently, I mean, if it uses different words, but it's still a motion to reconsider, then I don't think it can be made at this meeting anyway. I think it would have to come on the 23rd and then by someone who was on the prevailing side. But if it's a motion that's not really to reconsider the vote that was taken on Thursday, it's a new motion putting forth a new, proposal regarding Mr. Shanahan, then again, I'd have to hear it before I tried to offer an opinion about whether I thought it violated the reconsideration rule that I just referenced.
Thank you, sir.
That an answer?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, now that you got that out of the way and we're moving forward, one of the things that I heard from all of the commissioners thus far is concerns about the budget. Ms. Becker, I've asked you, I spoke to you earlier and I talked to you a little bit about the budget. And I just want to, my question to you is, can you give us an update where we are budget wise as it relates to salaries and positions if they're, and where we are at that standpoint as we sit here today?
Sure. At this point in time, we're mid-year. March 31st is our 6-month mark. You'll be seeing a budget report on the next commission meeting on Thursday coming to you. At this point in time, we have not busted the budget. Obviously, we have COVID expenditures that were not budgeted, therefore cash flow may be, we may look into the reserves at that point. Overtime has been a concern that we've all just, department heads and me talk very frequently, almost daily, about some of those things. That's due some to COVID, some just to vacancies that we have. It's something that we keep a watch on. We're going to continue to keep a watch on. If you're speaking to positions, there are not any positions that are advertised at this moment that are out of budget or that were not budgeted and approved by you all at the budget or in September, I guess, for this fiscal year. Nor were any of the reallocations of the dollars that a couple of you have referenced, and I believe that's what you're kind of asking me, were out of the budget. They were reallocated dollars.
And what's the difference between what was actually budgeted and where we are year to date?
I believe it was less than $20, but that was just a projection. I was asked to put a projection if we filled certain positions at a dollar that might be higher than their base. So kind of like a budgeted, we're advertising, have a little bit of room to negotiate with a couple of those said positions.
And so does that number include calculations for positions that aren't filled that were budgeted, or do you do a 100% assumption?
So are you talking about as far as lapse money goes, or are you
Right.
talking about, okay, so lapse, you are going to see some lapse because those dollars are not spent, or until they're filled. The budget has not been utilized, I guess you would say. However, that is only can be used for a one-time recurring expense, because we budget or we allocate the dollars as if somebody is there for the entire year.
Right. And so we do have some, we do have some monies that are there based on positions currently being unfilled that can basically be used to deal with one-time expenses such as overtime, correct?
Correct. Yes, we are looking at offsetting some of that overtime with some lapse money.
And so the difference, and just so I'm correct, the difference between what was actually budgeted and where we are today in the budget is roughly $20.
If we hired each person, each reallocated position at one of the on the higher end, but I don't believe that that'll even happen.
Okay. Any questions from the commission?
Yes, sir. This is Commissioner McCaskill. And it's relating to that $18,000 raise. Mayor, you did ask earlier on in the meeting if that raise came with some additional duties. So Mrs. Becker, did that raise come with additional duties?
To my knowledge, as finance, my job for reallocating positions and that sort of thing is just to say, what do we have in the budget and what are we able to do with this money? I believe that the justification is that there were additional duties that were going to be. However, that is not something that I typically get into with any of our city managers in the past. That's more of an HR question as far as justifying raises and such and where they should be placed and what level and classification. I'm truly there to make sure that we stay within the constraints of the budget that was approved by you all. And in the event that we do bust the budget or there's something that is not truly reallocated dollar for dollar, then that would have to come in front of you all and would have to be approved per an amendment.
Okay. So Mrs. Robinson, I guess that question would be for you. Did that raise come with additional duties for that position? Are you aware of that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I am aware of that, and they did. When there was the reorg, there was some reorganization of the city clerk's duties to allot risk management and a few other duties that the city clerk was performing at the time. So they took on a whole nother responsibility.
So previously the duties were the responsibility of the city clerk.
Yes.
And when did this raise take place again, just so the public can know?
Mid-March, our second pay cycle in March.
And at the time was the city clerk, has she put in for her retirement at that time? Was she on vacation? What was her status at the time?
Documentation was already signed for retirement.
She actually, and currently she's still on vacation. So at the time that the duties were transferred to that individual that got the $18,000 raise, she was still, it was transferred from under Mrs. Driggers, but she still was technically employed at the time.
That is correct.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
But
I have a question.
if I may, it was my understanding that we had previous discussions about removing, this was way before the current situation that was before us, about removing duties that were not necessarily supposed to be performed by the city clerk to whomever they were supposed to be. I do believe we had that conversation.
Who is we?
Commissioner Campbell, I just wanted to make sure I asked these questions and confirm so that the public can hear while we're on so they can have an understanding and, an idea of how this came about. So I do understand we did have conversation, and I just wanted them to be aware of what happened and the time that it took place as well.
Yes, ma'am, I understand, but I also want the citizens to know that this conversation has been one that we talked about before.
Well, the city, may I speak, the clerk had been doing stuff that she thought she was supposed to have done. And they hadn't changed anything at the time. Is there a timeline for us getting another clerk in that will take care of her duties? Nobody gonna answer?
Sorry, I'm sorry. The posting had come down in the midst of the removal of Mr. Shanahan. So Mr. Holmes and I still have to get together and review those applications. But we're ready to move forward with that. That was one of the questions we had as well when Mr. Bourne was concerned about moving forward with any more hires. There were some pending hires in play, and that is one of those positions.
Miss Mary, there are a couple of positions that we're going to go ahead and move forward with, depending upon how today's meeting goes. And I can provide a report on that at the appropriate time, either today or the 23rd. But I don't want to interrupt the flow of this meeting right now, unless you have a question, in which case I'll answer.
Don, I would like to see, if we're not gonna hire Betsy back, you talking about hiring Shanahan back. I think Betsy brought more to us than Shanahan, but I think that, I don't know if it's possible or not. We do need to have a city clerk. And when Betsy started, there had never been a city clerk before. Mr. Bush had a secretary who did sign the clerk stuff. Over a period of years, that stuff was shuffled down to her. I think before we get another city clerk, that it should be an outline of her duties so that everybody knows what she's supposed to do. And it's just not taken for granted and having somebody do stuff. I'd like to see us get a city clerk in, because I think it's important. There are things that a city clerk has to sign along with the mayor for us to get stuff done. So I would like to make sure that we are getting a city clerk in. I understand that you'll have Betsy on contract for a month or a few days, in a few weeks anyway.
We have our own contract.
Huh?
We have our own contract.
Okay, well, all the other stuff, we didn't all do, but I just wanna know that we're moving forward with that, and the clerk will be taking care of the clerk's duties, and the other people who have their duties will be taking care of theirs.
Just keep the commission informed on the 23rd, unless you want to move forward with that discussion today. It was our plan to let the commission know on the 23rd what budgeted but unfilled positions we were going to move forward to fill. In other words, I'm not talking about positions that are not already included in the budget, but positions that are allotted for and allowed for in the budget, but haven't yet been filled. 3 firefighters, 5 police officers, a couple of those things. And I'll be happy to bring that report back on Thursday.
I'd like to say this one thing before. I hope this meeting did a little bit more than just talk about the leaving of the city manager. I hope that with us sitting here and discussing about feelings and what's expected and what we would like to see, that all of us have a better understanding of each other. That being better together means that we do need to have that. And we had a good prayer to start us off with. I hope that now, as we go forward and work together, we'll get tons of stuff more done, and we'll have a way to have better understanding. And maybe if 2 of us have to call a special meeting for us to talk about some things, we can get it done without having any ill feelings or having any ill hurt going on.
All right, so Commissioner Borum, I think you had something.
Okay, I better reserve my comment. I'll wait till we end the meeting or whatever, but I'll wait.
All right, so couple things that I've heard in this meeting. And I guess I have one question now. I'm gonna ask this question. For those of you who mentioned a raise, a reassign, an allocation based upon different duties, whatever you want to call it. Was the issue the fact that the city manager issued a raise, or was it the amount of the raise?
I just think right now, we made our comments. I don't want to get into a lot of back and forth discussion.
Well, if you don't want to answer it, you can let somebody else answer.
Okay, I made my statement.
Okay, my question again is the issue for those who had concerns, was the issue the amount of the raise, or was the issue the fact that he gave a raise?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner
Yes,
Bourne,
ma'am.
the issue about the raise, and I just asked the question based on what you commented on earlier in the meeting about the raise came with additional duties. And I just asked the question to clarify, to understand. I didn't bring up the fact that the raise happened. I just asked, kind of asked the question based on what you put out there during the comment.
No, and the reason I asked it because I got a lot of additional information that I didn't have before as it pertained to it. And I was just trying to find out what was the concern overall. Was it the allocation or was it the amount? And I can say that I have issues I had issues with the amount personally, but not to the extent that I felt as though it warranted any termination itself. I expressed those concerns. I felt like that was something that could be discussed, and sometimes with timing, whether it's done from, done during the beginning of the fiscal year or during the budgeting season, but that was why I was asking the question. But I think overall what I'm hearing is this, and one thing I want the commission to listen to is what I've heard is, it doesn't matter if it's Bill Shanahan or anyone else who in the future who comes into this position, or even Mr. Holmes as he sits there today. One of the things that I heard is we all know that the sunshine law in some ways gives some inconveniences as it relates to how certain communications are put into place. The Florida legislature can communicate far differently than you do on the local level. But what I've heard is that we have, you put a person in the seat, and Commissioner Bourne probably said it best. There are 5, he has to take directives from 5 different ways to deal with 5 different approaches to how to do things, as opposed to having a methodology which allows him to have one comprehensive approach. And when that happens, we have to take into consideration that sometimes we may find ourselves where everybody has something different that they want him to do, or there's a split in the commission as to what certain items are. And you got a person who's stuck in the middle, not knowing which way to go. And so it may seem like he's ignoring one side of an equation, but when you're taking a different approach or ignoring what you're saying, but sometimes he may just be in the middle and he has to make a personal decision. And that doesn't matter who's there. I wholeheartedly agree with the concept that there has to be a more comprehensive approach to giving the priorities to the manager. But I also think that the most effective tool that we have to do that is through evaluations. And it may be an opportunity to look at having evaluations on a more frequent basis to put certain things in place so that you can chart what's there. Because the last thing that should be in place is termination. There are other corrective tools within the toolbox. Everybody has their own thought process. But, let's just say, for example, had we done, monthly or evaluations throughout that probationary period, then you have some direction as to what deficits may exist, and you have an opportunity to gauge what takes place. And the other thing that I'll tell you that I've heard, and Vice Mayor Brown talked a little bit about it, it was how certain actions. She talked about Ms. Triggers and how her leaving the city could affect morale of the citizens. But how does the city manager leaving in the carousel that we've created over the course of the last few years of constantly having a different person at the helm, how does that affect the morale of our staff overall? When we find ourselves, we were frustrated after going through a year of processes of trying to go in and interview and do advertisements and everything that's related to the city manager. And we were ready to get that process out of the way because it was taxing. And here we are again at the same point. Those folks who work daily in those positions are now in the same spot again. So just as frustrating as it is, as it relates to Ms. Triggers for some folks, based upon the example given by Vice Mayor Brown, that same frustration could exist as it relates to the manager as a whole. We've got to be conscious, one, I think, of the image that the city of Palatka has, because any manager now who comes in here is gonna say, well, what happened to the last guy? What happened to the guy before? What happened to the guy before that? And they're gonna look at this thing and say, look, I'm gonna make a decision to move my family. I'm gonna make a decision to make a commitment to a community where I don't necessarily have any guarantees that put me in a certain position. And some folks are gonna say, look, I'm gonna steer away from there because that may be a career ender, or it may be something that puts it in it. And my bottom line is, we've got to be conscious that we never do anything that casts negative aspersions upon this community as a whole and make it look as though we're unstable in the way that we do things. You have to be conscious of perception as we move forward, trying to find professionals to come in here. The pot was thin based upon what was in place this last meeting. We've gone through and seen where there were very few people who applied for the position and took it back out for re-advertisement. We have to be conscious of all those things as we move forward. I will say, one of the things that I'm glad has occurred within this meeting is simple dialogue. Having listened today to everyone's perspective, I have a greater insight on why people made motions and why they voted when we were here last Thursday. But I didn't get that before. And I exercised my right as the mayor of this city under this charter to be able to call a meeting to see if I can get the team back on the field. And that's exactly what's happened today. And while we may walk out of this meeting and we may not agree on what's going on, the one thing that we will agree on is that we all represent Palatka, and dialogue, conscious dialogue that's done in a civil manner will allow us to be able to move this community forward based upon the democratic process that's in place. But we all have to make sure, and I know sometimes I can be excitable for lack of any other term, but we all have to make sure, you're not supposed to laugh at that, Commissioner Moore. We all have to make sure that we are in a position where we can have dialogue in the proper form. If the frustration creates an opportunity for a workshop, then let's call the workshop. If the frustration creates an opportunity to sit down and have a special meeting, it takes two people, let's see if we can get it done. But we got to be able to understand, if you can't talk to each other, what we can do is call a meeting and try to get it done. It takes nothing for a commissioner to say, hey, I want to call a special meeting. And if council says it takes two people to call that special meeting, then it's nothing, it takes nothing to find someone else who may have the similar thought, or even say to the mayor, hey, we got a commissioner who wants to call a special meeting, but they don't have the numbers. You have the authority to call that meeting if you so choose. That's not in violation of anything. But it allows us to come to a forum and be able to say, hey, there's a pressing issue on the table that this commission needs to talk about. And you don't have any other mechanism in place that you can talk about it. You can't go into special session. You can't do any of those other things unless you meet certain parameters. But you have to have the ability to sit down and talk about this stuff. And my prayer walking in here today is that as we sit down and we talk about this thing, we also become aware that we're not going to find the perfect fit for this community. What we're gonna find is people who are willing to do their best. We're gonna find people who are willing to do the same things that we do. When we sit back in retrospect and look at some of the decisions that we've made, or some of the actions we've taken, we all gotta understand that sometimes as your own Monday morning quarterback, you wanna say, I wish I had another chance to undo what I did. And that's all this is about. It's sitting down and trying to figure it out. And so my biggest thing was making sure that all the information was on the table. And if there was any misinformation, that information be clarified to put us in a position so that we all had the same stuff out there. You know, we're not gonna all get the same level of information, unfortunately. Usually when something hits the fan, it's the mayor that's standing up there most of the time, because most people don't understand how government goes. They don't realize that my vote is the weakest vote on this commission, because 99% of the time, you guys have decided it before I get there, and I don't get to make a motion unless I pass the gavel. It happens like that. There are a lot of things that happen regularly. And so, but what we have the ability to do is to be able to call meetings and workshops and be able to work through this stuff so that there isn't anger, that there isn't frustration, that we don't have all those things in place. And so that's where we are. If we're gonna truly go in and use the slogan, we're better together, we gotta be better together. We have to continually work on the same team. As it relates to Bill Shanahan, I believe, in my own personal opinion, that the decision was not put in place at the proper time. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I watched this guy go into crisis management mode. All of the world is sitting around here trying to figure out what's going on. They don't know what's going on from DC to Tallahassee. They're all trying to figure it out because at every stage of the game, the report is different. Everybody's feeling their way through this stuff. But I watched this guy go into crisis management. I watched him change his perception of COVID. And when he did that, I saw him bring a team together. I watched human resources and recreation all of a sudden become the logistics team. And those guys were out trying to buy items. I watched different things happen. And while by no stretch of the imagination was he perfect as a manager, I didn't see, in my own opinion, where he needed to be terminated. And that's my opinion. Everybody has their opinion and they've given their thought processes as to how it takes place. I wanted to make sure that you guys understood my thought process. I believe that there's time to look at that contract, to look at what's taking place. And I believe that there's an opportunity for us to salvage the relationship. I haven't heard a whole lot that puts me in a position where I haven't heard anybody say something that was deliberately done to hurt this city. I haven't heard that. I heard a lot being said about judgment calls, heard a lot being said about promotions, and I gathered more information today. Will I ever, it's not my job on a daily basis to decide who gets a raise. The methodology, the policies that may be in place, we can employ those. You do that through the commission meeting. On the agenda, if you believe that there needs to be some additional policy, but you have to be conscious of what powers you have under the charter. And while we're in a small town and sometimes we find ourselves overlapping, we got to make sure that we never put ourselves in a position where in trying to help, we hurt. That's the reality of where we are. Now, I've listened to us and we've all had an opportunity to talk. And it's, we've been here for about an hour and a half. I'll listen to comments from the commission. If there are none, then I'm going to pass the gavel and make a motion myself. Are there comments from the commission?
I like to make a motion. I like to actually add an emergency item, if you don't mind, please.
What are you trying to take as? You have to tell us what you're trying to take as an emergency item.
I'm just asking the question. I like to make a emergency item to add Don Holmes as our city manager.
You're asking is it an emergency to make him do it if he's already an interim commission?
I'm moving to make Don Holmes our city manager. And the reason being, Don stepped up to the plate. And this is my motion. I mean, I don't know if you want to do a
So your motion is to take consideration of hiring Don Holmes as an emergency item?
yes,
That's your motion?
that's my motion.
So there's a motion to add an emergency item to this agenda. I guess it's kind of, this is the conflict that I was trying to avoid. So there's a
Can we
motion to add
please,
this.
can we please wait until our next regular meeting so we can think about? We've had a
My
lot
legal-
put on the table.
Your mind tells me this isn't an emergency item.
My question would be, before it's discussed, does it have to be second? Because tell me the process. I want to second it for the sake of discussion. I want to discuss it.
Okay.
But I think before you go there, you need a legal opinion that says whether this item can even be taken as an emergency item.
There is Mr. Holmes, I'm sorry.
Not to put me on a spot, but put me on a spot.
Well, you're definitely on the spot.
With all due respect, I think that probably this wouldn't be an emergency item since the role is, we're filling the role right now on an interim basis. And while I appreciate the thought, I think probably that's a motion, if it's ever made, it would be made at a regular meeting as an agenda item, with all due respect.
Okay, well, I'll rescind my motion at this time.
And that was my question. That was just, I wanted to discuss if it was proper to do it during this time.
It could have been done just through council's rendering, which is what I was trying to get done in the first place. So now that we're there, and so any other questions from the commission? Any other comments? If not, Vice Mayor, I'm going to pass the gavel to you at this time, virtually.
All right, give me one more chance to be mayor before I leave. Woo.
Give you another chance. So my motion is that we reemploy Bill Shanahan and as city manager with the ability to negotiate the terms of his contract and to include an evaluation process that is consented to by the entire commission.
Motion has been made. Do we have a second? No second? Motion dies for lack of second.
Motion dies for lack of second. Any other discussion from the commission? Commissioner Boer?
No, I don't have anything else. I appreciate everybody for hearing me out, and I hope I didn't create any confusion for anybody, but again, we're all better together, and I'm here to help work on behalf of our citizens of Palatka. They are my top priority.
Commissioner McCaskill?
I just want to thank all the citizens and the comments and everybody that were involved, that got involved in this meeting this time. I hope that moving forward, we don't have a situation as we had this at the last meeting where there were a lot of unanswered questions. I want the citizens to know that my number is available on the website, and you are more than welcome to reach out to me at any time that you would like to talk about any questions or concerns or anything, any questions that went unanswered during any meetings. So thank you.
Commissioner Campbell? Commissioner Campbell? Can't. Is he on the call?
Yeah, I don't see him, Mayor Hill. I don't see him.
I see him. No, that's you.
Is he on the call? Vice Mayor Brown.
I would like to say that I hope in having these kind of discussions, it gives us an opportunity to understand each other and see how we can work better together. I think that we've done a pretty fair job of working together. We need to continue to do it. And the only way to solve a problem is to communicate. We've had an opportunity to do this, and I hope it'll give us power for thought so that we can make the proper decisions here going forward.
Deborah said he was not.
Mayor, anytime you call a meeting, I'm gonna be in, cause I don't wanna miss nothing.
Is Commissioner Campbell back on?
No, I haven't seen him pop up, but he was not on the call for the motion.
I'm gonna go ahead at this time and take those public comments. Ms. Robinson, do we have any comments?
Mr. Mayor, can I make well, I'll wait for comments, but I did want to add a couple of comments at some point when it's appropriate.
Will do. I'll let you close out.
All right.
Ms. Robinson.
We have quite a few, Mayor, and then we have some commentary that goes through the chat as well. One of the first questions that we had coming through was from Janelle Williams. Question was, is it or was it possible to have conducted an evaluation of Mr. Shanahan's alleged mishandling after this pandemic was over?
It was indeed possible to do an evaluation if the commission decided to, if the commission and both Mr. Shanahan decided to forego the requirement that it had to be done prior to April 4th. That you agree with that, council?
I believe that when the issue came up, we were only, I think, 5 days after the April 4th deadline. I don't think it would have been substantially untimely to have moved forward with an evaluation at that point. And I also agree with you, or where I thought you were headed earlier when you indicated that in the future, maybe staging or timing the evaluation a little bit earlier in the process might be helpful so that you don't end up trying to crunch the evaluation in less than 1 month before the probationary period ends, which
Right.
is the way it was timed this time.
Exactly. Next question, Ms. Robinson.
Roberta Carrera, are there specific goals and objectives established for the city manager's position to set job expectations and measure performance?
Anybody want to chime in? I don't want to take all the questions. I think they're coming into it. Every city manager candidate understands what the priorities of the commission are, the goals and objectives of the commission. Typically, the goals and objectives have been put into place based upon the stated priorities. What I've heard today is there needs to be, I think, greater clarity on how to accomplish other things that aren't a part of the 4 priorities that are in place. Anybody else want to interject? Can't hear you, boy. You got to unmute.
Oh, not for that particular thing, but somebody chimed in on my cell phone. They texted me a question, so when it rotates around to me, I'll just read.
You got the mic. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, somebody text me and they asked if HR now, since not HR has an assistant now, has their duties decreased? That's what the question was. It came from a number. I need to just text and see who it was, but that's what the person asked.
It has to be a question answered by HR. I wouldn't be able to answer it.
Well, she's on. Ms. Robinson, are you on the line?
The duties actually increased.
Thank you.
Okay,
I will,
next
I
question.
will relay the message. Thank you.
Mr. Campbell, you made it back?
Yes, I apologize. I had a very important meeting with my staff that I could not push back any further. So I do apologize. I had to log off and let them know that. But again, I had to have that conversation with them.
All right. Next question.
Next question is Deborah King. Did anyone ask to give an evaluation on his job performance before the discussion was made to terminate Mr. Shanahan?
It's in his contract, but not, I don't know if anyone else on this line, did any other commissioners make a request for an evaluation?
We did the same thing that we did for the rest of our city managers that we had. It was the same thing.
But I thought when we had the conversation with regards to the evaluation, and we noticed the last time we ran into the same thing, that we were going to make it, that's why we put it back in there and said that we wouldn't make any decisions until we had an actual evaluation. So that was my thought process, or that's what I remember when we were going through the process this last time.
I specifically recall the email coming out on the same day as this meeting with the evaluation forms in it. As
But
well,
that went out.
on last Thursday, I think the evaluation forms came out with an email, not before that actual meeting. And so next question.
Jay Gibbs, if Mr. Shanahan is reinstated, can you schedule a workshop and move forward?
Based on the last motion that I made, doesn't look like that's gonna happen. Next
I
question.
wasn't present for the motion, but I would second it.
Motions passed at this time. It would have to be revived by a new motion.
Well, I make the motion that we reinstate Mr. Shanahan.
Don, is that legal? Is that, can we do something based on, we had a quorum, we had a quorum for that particular thing.
We did this the other day. We had to get Ms.
I'm talking, Commissioner Campbell, please let me finish. I'm asking our city attorney.
It said that one of us had to make that
It
motion.
died for a lack of a second. We had a quorum. So does anybody get a chance to come back and redo this over again?
Well, I think I understand this is what we did the other day when we had to get Ms. Brown back on the phone to make the appropriate approval. So I don't think it's any different.
I understand, but I'm just trying to follow the Robert's Rule of Order. Anytime you have a quorum, I think you can move forward, but I'm just relaying that to our city manager, interim city manager / attorney for a question. That's what I'm doing.
I think we're all charting.
Vice Mayor Brown, excuse me, I'm sorry. Can you please turn your microphone off?
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
You want me to do what? Hello?
Your mic.
I think she asked you to turn your mic off, Ms. Mary.
It's already, we did it from here. We did.
I think we're all traveling along uncharted routes with this virtual meeting process, and the fact that we started with everyone and then someone dropped off of the meeting. I don't know I don't know that there's precedent for me to rely upon in giving you an answer where someone intentionally drops off of the meeting to attend another meeting, but we still have a quorum present. So, probably ought to err on the side of caution. I don't think the motion that I'm concerned about the motion that Commissioner Campbell made. I thought the motion that the mayor made probably stayed far enough away of a reconsideration so that it was a legal motion. So from my perspective, to give you a straight answer, erring on the side of caution, if the mayor wanted to make his motion again and see if there's a second, again, I would err on the side of caution and say that probably was lawful.
So move.
You might have to restate the motion if Mr. Campbell wasn't there to hear it.
My previous motion was to reemploy Bill Shanahan as the city manager, to enter into negotiations with him on the terms of the contract, and to also incorporate, based upon unanimous consent of the commission, terms of evaluation.
Second.
Vice Mayor, could I mute our mic?
Cheers.
Vice Mayor?
Said the motion has been made and second. Want to call for the vote?
Yes, ma'am. Question.
Question call. All in favor of reinstating
It's a
We may
city
roll call.
manager?
We may need to do a roll call vote, Ms. Mary, because of the difficulty.
Okay, well, Mayor Hill,
Yes.
Borum, Commissioner Borum,
No.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tammy McCaskill,
No.
and my vote is no.
Motion fails by a vote of 3-2. At this time, any further questions, Ms. Robinson, from the citizens?
Let's see. Jason Smith. The opinions are more personal than business. Did he do his job?
It's a matter of opinion. I'll get her mic. So it's a matter of opinion. I think as to, that's kind of a subjective question. So I don't think there's gonna be an answer that you're gonna get uniformity on in this group right now with a 3-2 divide. Next question.
Next question.
Can you speak the questions up for me too?
Can you see them?
Next question.
We had Donna Beatty. If you rehired him, will there be a new contract?
It's not happening. Next question.
I'm strolling, give me just a minute. Dee Dee Armstetter, this is an ancient history. Isn't there a job description for the city clerk in place?
City clerk's not on the agenda. And the city clerk does have a job description. Every employee of the city has a job description. Next question.
I'm at the end, Mayor. The rest was just commentary.
All right, we'll close public comment at this time. Mr. Holmes, you had something you wanted to put on the table?
I did. Chief Grimes, did you and Mr. Cutright decide who was going to address that issue that you brought to my attention?
Yes, I was going to address it, Mr. Holmes. Whenever I get a chance to speak, I was going to bring that up.
You got the mic.
Well, I would like to personally say this to the commissioners and the mayor and every department head, and also the community of Palatka. But I want to personally thank Winston Fletcher for a wonderful job that he's doing with the logistics team of this pandemic issue that we're going through. He has reached out to many different communities and many different companies to help us obtain PPEs and all kinds of supplies to help with disinfector, and he's doing a wonderful job. So I wanted to reach out and say this out loud to everybody. Myself and Chief Grimes kind of totally agree on this. I will give him a chance to add to this if he want to, but I just wanted to personally thank him in this forum to let him know, everybody know that he's doing a wonderful job and going above and beyond to make sure we get the things we need to be safe in this community.
Sharp, well done. Mr. Fletcher online?
No, he's not at this time, but I definitely will.
He's matter of fact, Mayor, he's still here at the fire department. He's still working. I would just like to echo those comments, and I sent out an email today. I mean, he is just going above and beyond anything we could ever ask him to do in this position that he's doing. And I just like to just tell you guys as a collective group how good of a job he's doing.
And for those who do not know, Winston Fletcher works as he works and as a cultural resources coordinator. And during the pandemic, because the parks are closed, he, along with Mr. Cutright, have been working as a part of the logistics team to make sure that we get certain emergency items or services in that we need in order to kind of deal with issues as they come up. And that was something that was done by way of the city manager reorganizing certain duties during a state of emergency. Mr. Holmes.
Yes, sir. There was one more thing. You mentioned something that's very true and that we often see in our professions about perception, public perception being more important than reality. We all, I guess, maybe not all, but most of us look at Facebook occasionally. I try not to look at it too much, but in these days, I do look at it some. And I noticed that there were people who had questions about and found it suspicious that I happened to have the city code available during the meeting on Thursday. And they may find it suspicious that I had part of the code available for me today. They need to understand that I'll get questions from commissioners that relate to what may come up on the agenda that night. And for instance, on Thursday, we had a question about the contract, and the HR generalist sent me a copy of Mr. Shanahan's contract that afternoon, and that's why I had it with me when we started that meeting. And the same for tonight. I'd already had the question raised about reconsiderations and what the procedure was under our code. So it was incumbent on me to have that provision of our code available. So sometimes what seems unexplained or suspicious really is just a function of the fact that we were alerted to the fact that a topic may come up. That doesn't mean we're alerted to what the end result of that topic is going to be, but just to the fact that there may be a need for clarification on what our ordinance provides. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain that.
You're welcome. As we close out, anything else?
Our next meeting is the 23rd.
Yes,
do you know yet whether we're going to be able to meet or we're going to have to do this again?
You're always welcome to come in here. We got tables set up. It seems like technology, if you got technology challenges, we have a table set up for you. That's about 10 feet away from the next table. And we can accommodate you in City Hall without violating any of the governor's executive orders.
Okay.
And so right now, basically, we're going to comply with the executive order. Everyone has the opportunity to actually come into the commission room if you so choose. For the commission as a whole, we want to limit the number of people that we have in here. So if you choose to want to be present in City Hall at any point, what we're trying to do is make sure that we set the example for social distancing. And we're going to make sure we keep this building to less than 10 people. So make sure you make your reservation if in fact you want to be in here. And we're going to continue with that in place. Anything from any of our department heads that we need to have that you need to report on at this time? Is Chief Shaw on the line?
Yes, sir, I am.
Chief, one of the things I made a post last week, this week, as it concerns to large gatherings that we're still having with citizens throughout. One of the things I want the commission to be cognizant of as we continually meet and dealing with some of dealing with the COVID issues that are out there is really being able to push the message out to our young people. I think they believe that they're exempt. If you look at the numbers in Putnam County, it goes from 6 years old to 82. We've got, our undersheriff is actually, there's an article in the paper today about Colonel Wells being quarantined based upon exposure to COVID. We've got a 2-month-old. There's an 11-month-old throughout this country that have been exposed, throughout Florida that have been exposed. COVID doesn't discriminate against anyone. We understand that there are large numbers of people based upon socioeconomic status, and it's affected the even African-American community at rates significantly higher than most in this pandemic. But we've got to make sure that within this community that we teach our young people that they need to abide by what's going on and be creative. In today's society, we've got folks who are out there having virtual parties and happy hours and all kinds of things. But just to gather up on our local streets, you're not doing anything to protect your health or any of the citizens in this community. And that's activity that won't be tolerated. And so, we're moving closer to a point where, I may walk back in here at any day. I'm just trying to make sure that we're in concert with the county from an enforcement standpoint as it relates to looking at curfew, some of this other stuff. If we continue to have this late night hanging out and these crowds that are rowdy and in the streets fighting and behaving in ways that won't be tolerated when there's no pandemic. And so as a commission, I want you guys to be conscious and thinking of where we are, but I am very, very close in the state of emergency to bringing this forward because we've got to make sure that we protect the masses. In other communities, they're actually issuing ordinances requiring folks to wear some face covering or mask when they're going out shopping and things of that nature as methods to minimize what's in place. And we've got to make sure that in Putnam County, we're doing it. We started a week ago, we were talking about 12 cases. We're at 43 cases now. The numbers are growing, some mostly because testing is actually being employed at a higher level. But there are people throughout that are asymptomatic. There are people throughout who are exhibiting symptoms and haven't been tested. And so we've just got to make sure that every citizen is doing what's necessary to flatten this curve. If we want to get to the other side of normal and get back to some sense of normalcy, it's going to take sacrifice from your social activity. And that's where we need to be. Only come out for essential activity. I won't do it. I won't do what the mayor of West Memphis did, but stay your butts home if you can, because that's where we are. And we need to do what we can. I mean, I'm stuck in the house just like everybody else. I feel like I'm on house arrest. We got to make sure that we only come out for essential activity and that we follow these executive orders in order to flatten the curve. Anything else from the commission? Mr. Holmes, you got anything? So, and I want to tell you guys, I want to thank the commission and also the citizens for tuning in. While it may seem like nothing happened, a whole lot happened from the standpoint of professionalism, from the standpoint of being able to at least have dialogue. And I guess that's Ms. Brown's bell telling me to get off this call. But I just think that overall, we have to constantly make sure that we do the things necessary to move the community forward. We're back to square one again, a place I would rather not be. But there was a vote. The votes were cast, and there were 3 parties in that vote that prevailed. And we're going to honor those votes in the process. And we got to be conscious of what the impacts are going to be, but we've got to move forward, and we have to move forward collectively in order to make this community better. I don't want us to get lost on the fact that we're dealing with a pandemic at this point and to have any distractions coming from selection of a city manager and all the things that were there that are in place. And so we're going to move forward. We'll get with the Mercer group and bring the parameters back and whatever details need to be in place at our next meeting. Aside from that, Mr. Holmes, continue to practice law privately because you may lose your job soon. But I think overall, we've just got to move forward with Palatka as a whole. I don't like the idea of us looking like a bunch of folks who have no clue as to what they're doing. And I don't want the public to ever think that there's not collective responsibility within this commission to continually correct a lot of things that were there in the past. It didn't take us a day or a month or 6 months to correct the fact that we had water lines that needed to be replaced from 1886. Palatka has a lot of things that need to be fixed, but Palatka has a lot of great things to offer the rest of this world. And we're gonna make sure that we let people know that the gem of the St. Johns River will continue to shine and that businesses are moving into this community, even during the pandemic. Major businesses are looking at Palatka as a great opportunity for commerce. And so guys, don't get lost on the facts of that. We're dealing with this, and while we don't agree, we all play on the same team. And that team's Palatka, and we've got to move forward. As your leader, again, I apologize for not being able to have us in a position where we didn't have discord in the manner that we did before. But I'm confident that the professionals that were on this call today will always be the professionals that stand forward and love this community. And so if there's nothing else here for us to discuss at this particular time, then we're going to go ahead and discontinue this call and adjourn this meeting. And so seeing everyone's face, we will stand adjourned at this time, and this meeting is called. The time is 6:07.